Hello gorgeous besties, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel and welcome to my book haul. I am very excited. I'm going to be going through the about 50 books that I have acquired over the last few months and talk through them with you. I have fantasy romance, regular fantasy, contemporary romance. I think I do have a literary fiction in here somewhere, and I'm just excited to go through them with you all. I'm not going to go through all of the synopses because otherwise we would literally be here for hours, but I'll just show you guys the book, tell you why I bought it, something cute like that. And yeah, I'm excited, so let's just get straight into it. So I did take the time to actually organize these books by genre for the most part. So I'm gonna try to do like all the fantasy romances together, all the fantasies, all the contemporaries, and then the books that I didn't really know where to put them, I will talk about those all together as well. So let's start with fantasy romance. So number one, I got the Barnes & Noble exclusive paperback of House of Sky and Breath. I just absolutely love this edition. I think it is really beautiful. I think it looks so pretty on display, and this is one of my favorite book series of all time, so I absolutely had to get it. I already had the House of Earth and Blood paperback because that one came out first, and I went and picked this one up as soon as it was out. So next up are two books that are part of the same series. We have A Crown This Cold and Heavy, and then A Kingdom This Cursed and Empty by Stasia Stark. They look very similar and they sound very similar, but the first book is A Court This Cruel and Lovely, which I read last month, I think, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was so much fun. So I went ahead and purchased the other books in the series that are out, and I'm really excited to pick these books up. I'm actually going to pick up the second book, which is A Kingdom This Cursed and Empty, and my friend Steph from Stephanie Bookish and I, we are going to be buddy reading it in January, and I hope that we both really love it because we both really liked the first book. This is a super solid fanro series. It is on KU and it's very fun. I just really like the physical copies because I think that they're super beautiful. Next up, I got The Everking by L.J. Andrews. This is a fantasy romance that I have just seen buzzing around Bookstagram for a while, and it sounded good to me, so I picked it up. However, I did recently learn that this is a spin-off to a like 9-book fantasy romance series. So now I am wondering if I should try to read that whole fantasy series before I start this, but either way, I definitely want to get to this book in 2024. I think it sounds really good, and this author just has a ton of books, so I might need to get into her backlist. I would love if you have read the prequel series to The Everking. Is it required reading? Should I do it? Is it fantastic? Am I going to ruin The Everking if I read this first? I don't know, but I'm excited either way. I've heard really good things. Next up, we have Vows and Ruins by Helen Shore. This is the second book in the Legends of Thesmar series, which is an adult fantasy romance series. I read Blood and Steel a few months ago, and I enjoyed it. It was like a 3.5 star, but I do definitely want to see what happens with our plot and with our characters. I'm definitely intrigued enough. I've heard really glowing things about this book, so I do hope that I end up liking this book a little bit more than the first one, and hopefully the series just gets better and better. Next up, this book is stunning, and that is Flame and Sparrow by S.M. Gaither. So pretty. So this is a new series by S.M. Gaither. S.M. Gaither wrote the I forget the name of the series, Crowns and Something series, but the first book is The Song of the Marked, which I read like 2 years ago, I want to say, and I did enjoy that first book, but as the series went on, I just was losing interest and I wasn't really liking the plot. But because I do like S.M. Gaither's writing in general, when I heard that she was writing a new series, I definitely wanted to try it out, and I think that this sounds really good, really cool. I believe our main character falls in love with a god, which I am very excited about that, and I just think this is super pretty, so I do hope that I have more luck with this book. Another fantasy romance that I have purchased recently is The Coven by Harper L. Woods. I have just seen this everywhere. Honestly, I feel like I have seen this absolutely everywhere. I know that there's like a hardcover edition coming out with sprayed edges, which I've also seen everywhere. And I've just seen a lot of people talking about this, saying that this is super fun, and I'm excited to try this out. It's also pretty short, so this might be good for like a 24-hour readathon. But yeah, I'm excited to see what all the buzz is about. Next up, we have Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This book sounds super fun. I know that it does get compared to like The Hunger Games a little bit and The Bachelor a little bit. I think it sounds really cool. I also thought the cover was really stunning. This book and the entire series has kind of been on my radar for a while, so I did see it at Barnes. It looks like it was picked up by a traditional publisher. I'm really excited to give it a shot. Next up is The Witchwood Knot by Olivia Atwater. So this is the same author as Half a Soul, and that whole trilogy is like Regency fantasy romance. This is supposed to be a Victorian fantasy romance, which I think sounds really cool. I think Olivia Atwater has really beautiful writing, and I just really enjoyed Half a Soul. I do have the rest of that series. I also wanted to pick this one up as well because I think a Victorian fantasy romance sounds fantastic. The next book a part of my haul is House of Bane and Blood. This one sounded really cool. I think it's kind of like a darker fantasy romance, and I know that we have like opposing families, which you know just means there's going to be like forbidden love, enemies to lovers. I just think it sounds really amazing, and I saw a lot of people buzzing about this book. I have read or tried to read one other book by this author, and I wasn't like a huge fan, but once again, I always like to give an author a few tries before I decide that they might not be for me, and this storyline definitely interests me a lot more than the other book I tried from her, so I'm excited for this. Next up is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now, I did recently read this book and gave it 2 stars. I wasn't into it. I really wasn't into the characters. I thought that the world building lacked a bit, and overall I just didn't really vibe, but I really liked the ending. So while I did not love this first book, I do think I'm going to read the second book in the series just because I was just really taken with the ending. I don't know. I want to give the second book another shot, and maybe it'll be a situation where just like the first book isn't great for me, but as the series goes on, it gets better and better. I am like the only person, I think, who does not like this book, but I definitely want to give the second book a shot. So I'm gonna hold on to this first one, and I might reread it before the second book comes out to give it another shot and also refresh myself. I don't know, man. This ending really got me, and it's made me so curious for what's gonna happen in book 2. So I'm holding out hope. I also have 2 books from the Gods and Monsters series. So I have the Book of Azrael and Throne of Broken Gods. I have read the Book of Azrael, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. The world building was a little bit much at times and a little bit confusing, but I do really like these characters, and I'm excited to see what happens. And I have heard nothing but like insanely glowing reviews for Throne of Broken Gods. So I definitely want to get to this in 2024. I'm really looking forward to it. I do like this author's writing style with how she does characters and romance. Just the world building got to be a lot at times, but I'm still excited to continue on with the series. All right, so another series that I picked up is Bound and Barbed and Made and Marred by Samantha R. Good. I read Bound and Barbed a month or 2 ago, I want to say, and I thought it was a solid start to a fantasy romance series. It is a fated mates fantasy romance with vampires. And although this wasn't like a 5-star read, I'm still very curious to see what's going to happen. So I did pick up Made and Marred. I have had a few people tell me that this is a really great sequel, so I'm excited for it. So the next entire series that I have to show you, other than the last book, which is not out yet, is the Plated Prisoner series. Now look, I'm just gonna hold up one of these because it's way too heavy. So the Plated Prisoner series was a book series that I read the first 3 of in 2022. So about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. I read Gild, Glint, and Gleam. I enjoyed them, but I felt my interest waning, and I just didn't really want to prioritize this series anymore. However, I have been thinking about this series a lot, and I have seen a lot of people really enjoying it, and it's always one of those series that I'm like, should I give it another shot? Because I wasn't hating the series, I just wasn't really caring about it too much. I don't know, so it was kind of always in the back of my mind. And then I went to a used bookstore in my area, and I found Gild, Glint, and Gleam, and they were in like perfect condition and really cheap, so I was like, dang, maybe I should pick those up because I've been thinking about the series and giving it another shot. So I decided to grab these, and then I also picked up Glow and Gold, which I have not read either of these books. I have read these, so I think I'm gonna reread the series in 2024. I don't know, I want to give books second chances, and I feel like I didn't hate these first 3 books, I was just losing interest, and when I saw them in such good condition for such a good deal, I don't know, it just felt like a sign. So I'm gonna try to read the Plated Prisoner series in 2024. I know the final book is Goldfinch, and that is coming out next summer, I want to say. So I'm gonna give this another shot. I'm excited. I do want to see how Arin, I think it's pronounced, it's either Arin or Orin. I want to see how our little gold girl's journey ends, and I do hope that I end up liking this a little bit more on a reread. If you watched my last video, I talked about how the Lady of Darkness series is haunting me. I am currently reading Lady of Darkness. Like right after I filmed that video, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick it up again. Like, let's just read it in December. I feel like December is such a casual month, so I'm doing tons of rereads right now. And I picked up Lady of Darkness. You guys, I'm enjoying myself. I really am. I think that when I read Lady of Darkness for the first time, it might have been the audiobook that made me not love the series, because I did mostly listen to the audiobook when I read that book last year. So I don't know, maybe I just didn't vibe with the audiobook, but I am liking Lady of Darkness. It's not gonna be like a 5-star, but I am enjoying it a lot more, and it's giving me hope and some inspiration to try a few books that I either DNF'd or, you know, maybe I DNF'd the series because I was losing interest. So I'm excited about that because I've just heard really good things about that series and then also this series. So yeah, all this very long-winded explanation to say I bought the Plated Prisoner series and we're gonna give it another shot in 2024. So next up, I do have Iron Flame. I picked this up when it came out on release day, and I actually just finished it. And this is a book, for sure. This is a book that exists, that I do own, and I will let you guys know more about my thoughts in my wrap up. But yeah, I am disappointed to say the least. So more on that later. Okay, so next up are a few books that, like, are they fantasy romances? Yes, but are they fantasy romances? No. I don't really know what to call them. I usually call them fanros, but then I've seen people say that these aren't fanros, so I don't know. But these are just kind of gonna be somewhere in the middle between fantasy and fantasy romance, and they are all by the same author. So number 1, I have A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I picked this up on release day because I just wanted to read this book right away. I was pretty disappointed with this finale. I will say I've talked about that on Goodreads, and I've talked about that in my vlog and my wrap up and all of that, but I still love this world. Like, I really love the writing. I really do love the characters. I just think think the execution of the finale was like average, but overall this is still a very strong and beloved series to me. And this is such a beloved series to me that I did go ahead and get the UK editions of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series because it is stunning. It is so much better than the US covers, you guys. Like, I cannot believe, I feel like this aesthetic suits the series so much more than the US version does, and I just think it's really, really beautiful. I think it's so much more whimsical and magical looking, and because I do love this series so much, I got another edition. I really, really love this. And then after I finished the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, I was really craving more of Stephanie Garber, you guys. I was like, God, I love her writing so much. I want more from her. I know that we're not going to get another new book for probably a year, so I did go ahead and pick up the Caraval series. I have read Caraval and it was okay. It was like 3.5 stars, like perfectly fine, but I just miss her writing style so much, and This World and the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, they are connected. I just need anything, honestly. I am craving it so much, so I'm gonna give Caraval another shot. So I have Caraval, I have Legendary, and I do have Finale. I'm gonna lower my expectations a little bit because like I don't think this is gonna be as good as the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, but I just love her writing so much. Like, she's truly, even though I didn't really love the third book, I do think she's one of my favorite authors. Like, I will pick up anything she publishes in the future, and because of that, I just want to give her backlist a little bit more of a chance. So I'm going to try to get to this trilogy and hopefully I will love it. Next up, I do have The Prison Healer. I have heard this book compared to Throne of Glass, like especially early Throne of Glass, and if I hear that, you know I'm going to pick it up. So I want to give this a shot as well. I've heard some pretty decent things, and I'm always down for a new YA fantasy. So now we're going to switch to the contemporary romance section, and then I will show more fantasies at the end because all of my contemporary romances are right next to me. So let's get to those. So number one, I have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I read this book in 2022, I want to say, maybe even earlier than that. No, 2022 feels right. I really love this. This is a 4-star romance for me. It's really great. I read it on my Kindle, so I didn't have a physical copy, and I was at the bookstore and I was like, you know what? I want to physically own that book. It's a really beautiful love story, and I'm just excited to have it on my shelves. Then we have Done and Dusted. I'm obsessed with these covers. They are so cute. I love this art style, and I've heard pretty good things. This is obviously like a small town cowboy romance, which apparently is something I am very into if the Chestnut Springs series is any indication, so I'm excited to start this series. Next up, I have Wildfire by Hannah Grace. The first book in the series is Icebreaker, which was that very popular hockey figure skater romance, and I did enjoy myself, but I definitely think it could have been a lot better. I think it had a lot of potential, but there were definitely some moments of the book that I did not love. But this is the second book in the series. They are interconnected standalones, so you don't have to read them in order, but this one just sounded really good. It takes place at like a summer camp, which is a setting that I love. Oh my god, I love a summer camp setting, and I have heard that this is definitely a step up from Icebreaker, so I'm excited for that. Then I have The Deal by Elle Kennedy, the OG, the classic hockey romance. I did try to read this book, God, 2020 or 2021, something like that, very long time ago, and I DNF'd it at 100 pages. I just wasn't really feeling it. But when I read this for the first time, I think I had only read like 1 or 2 contemporary romances in my life at that point. So now that I've read many, now that I understand the hockey romance subgenre, I want to give this another shot. This is like the hockey romance, and I think that I'll be going in with a little bit of a better mindset when I read this. Following that, I also purchased The Graham Effect, which is the like second generation of the off-campus series. So the main character of this book is the child of the main characters in this book, which is very exciting. And I've heard super glowing things about this book. I know that both of our love interests in this book are hockey players, so I'm really excited to see a female hockey player as the main character in this book. I think that that's really cool, and yeah, I've just heard great things and I want to see what all the buzz is about. Next up is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, which I just finished, and I absolutely loved this book. It was a super strong 4-star for me. I've had like mixed luck with Lauren Asher's books, and this book, while it is cheesy, I don't know, I just really loved it. I'm obsessed with the characters, the setting, their families. I found myself laughing out loud at a lot of the moments in this book, and I just thought it was super cute. So I'm just so happy that I have found a Lauren Asher book to really love. I'm definitely going to pick up the rest of the books in this series because I really like this universe so far, and yeah, I just really cannot say enough good things about Love Redesigned. Next up, I have Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is the 3rd book in the Windy City series, and I believe the tropes in this book are like single dad and he's a baseball player, so I'm very excited about that. I really enjoyed Liz Tomford's books. I've given them all 4 stars, and I've heard that this one is just as fantastic as the other 2, so I'm excited. So this book is not a contemporary romance, but I didn't really know where else to put it. It is a paranormal romance, and that is Wolf Gone Wild Child by Juliet Cross. I saw this entire series, and number one, it's super beautiful. It's such a colorful series, so it really caught my eye. And then I saw a lot of people praising it and saying it's a very fun paranormal romance series. I'm also really interested in a future book coming out by this author called The Wraith King, which is going to be a dark fantasy romance. It's coming out, I think, towards the end of next year. So I did want to get like a taste for her writing before I do pick that up. And yeah, I think these are supposed to be like very fun, very cute, very silly paranormal romances. And this first one, I believe the love interest is a werewolf, I think. So I'm excited for that. The next book is Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. This is a sapphic romance. It's also set in Seattle. The first book in the series is Written in the Stars, which I really enjoyed and I had so much fun with. And Alexandria Bellafleur's books, they are just so fun, so happy. They remind me of like early 2000s rom-coms. They just give that same energy. And truly, it's the highest compliment that I can pay a book. So I'm really excited to read this and continue on with this series. The next book a part of my haul is Mistakes Were Made. This is another sapphic romance, and the tagline of this book got me. It says, "The good news, she likes someone. The bad news, it's her best friend's mom." Let's go. I'm so here for it. I looked up the reviews on Goodreads for this, and they're actually really fantastic. So I'm super excited about this, and I like that kind of forbidden element in a romance. So I think this is going to be really fun. So I do have a little baby Christmas romance section here, just 2 books. And the first one is Holiday Romance, which I just recently read at the beginning of the month, and it was so good. You guys, this is a really solid Christmas romance. 10 out of 10 recommend. It was so much fun. It features a lot of like travel and being in airports and on airplanes, which is something that I really enjoy. I have figured out in a romance book specifically. So I had such a good time with this and really wanted to get a physical copy. Next up is How the Grump Saved Christmas. And I also recently read this when I read Holiday Romance, and I did enjoy myself. It was like a 3.5 star. It wasn't my favorite of the weekend, but I did really like it. It also has the cutest book cover I have ever seen. It's definitely like a solid Christmas romance if you're looking for one. It also takes place in Washington, which is really cool. All right, so for this last section of my haul, I have some adult fantasies. I have like a dark academia YA fantasy moment, and then I also have a literary fiction novel. So let's get to it. First up, I have The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. This is a standalone fantasy. I'm very excited. I have seen glowing reviews from people who I really trust their fantasy opinions, and they've really enjoyed it. So I'm excited, and I honestly don't know if I've read a standalone adult fantasy. If I have, it has been too long, so I'm excited for that. Next up is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, and this is the second book and the final book in the Shepherd King duology. I did try to pick this up, but the first like 30 or 40 pages were just not gripping me. I'm gonna give this some time because I did really love One Dark Window. I was so entertained. I loved the characters, and I do want to see how things end, but I think I'm just gonna wait a little bit because for some reason I wasn't vibing with this book when I picked it up. Next up is Masters of Death by Olive E. Blake. I've enjoyed every single Olive E. Blake book that I have ever read. I love her writing style. Alone with You in the Ether, it's very different from this, but it is one of my favorite books of all time, and I just want to pick up anything that this author puts out, so I'm looking forward to this. Next up, I have City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I've just seen the series everywhere. I've heard really glowing reviews, and it's just one of those series that's always been in the back of my mind that I want to pick up, and I decided to pick it up recently when I was at Barnes. I'm really looking forward to this. I hope that I love it as much as everyone else. The next book that I have is The Lies of Locke Lamora. I've just heard this book being touted as like a very iconic, all-time great fantasy novel, so I wanted to pick it up. I am very intimidated by it though. I was supposed to buddy read this with Lachlan like 2 months ago, and I just never picked it up, so sorry about that, Lachlan, but I do want to give this a shot when I'm ready for sure. I don't know when that's going to be, but I'm excited by the prospect. I remember when I looked it up on Goodreads, I thought it sounded interesting. That's why Lachlan and I wanted to pick it up, but I'm intimidated by this, so I'll pick this up at some point. Next, we have A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This is a YA fantasy, dark academia, question mark, I think. I saw all of the girlies reading this in the fall, and I picked it up right when it came out, but I didn't end up reading it this fall. So I'm really excited about this. Particularly, I have seen absolutely glowing reviews of the writing style. It looks really beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think this is gonna be like a September or October moment for me, but I'm excited. I've never read a book by Ava Reed, and I am curious about her backlist and future books that she has coming out. And because I've heard such good things about this, I definitely want to get to this in 2024. So the next book, a part of my haul, is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I picked this up. This is Cassandra Clare's adult debut, and I picked this up because I do love the Shadowhunter books. I am fully in my Shadowhunters era. I am working through all of the series right now, and when I heard that she was coming out with an adult debut, I was very excited. I have heard like mixed things about it. I've heard it's not super exciting or entertaining, but I do want to give it a shot. I have been so curious to see what else is she going to write outside of the Shadowhunters world, and an adult debut is very exciting, so I will definitely give it a shot and, you know, form my own opinion, but I am hopeful that I do like this. All right, so the very last book, a part of my end of year book haul, is The Rachel Incident. Was this a title buy? Absolutely it was. I saw this on Goodreads and I was like, oh my god, it's me. What is this book about? And imagine my pure delight when I see that this book follows a girl in her mid-20s living in the UK, going through it, dealing with love, sex, relationships, friends, all of that. That is one of my favorite subgenres of fiction. It gives me Sally Rooney vibes, it gives me Adelaide vibes, it gives me Cleopatra and Frankenstein vibes, which are all books that I really enjoyed. So I'm really excited to read this. I hope that I am not disappointed by The Rachel Incident, because it feels like a crime if I am, but I'm really looking forward to this and it sounds really good. So when I'm in the mood for a literary fiction, I'm definitely gonna pick this up. All right, my gorgeous friends, so that is going to be it for my end of year book haul. If you made it to this point in the video and you wanted to let me know, go ahead and leave one of the cat emojis, because Ivy has been sitting here watching me film the entire time. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram and Goodreads. They will always be linked down below. I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.